Hey everyone, so today we're doing a quick comparison between the Sony A7 IV and the Sony A7 III. Now immediately the physical differences, the A7 IV is a lot bigger, so it is thicker, the body overall is thicker, the grip is much larger. So if you've seen an A7S III, it's the same kind of body. The grip feels like a larger camera now, whereas the A7 III, this grip here is quite a bit smaller. When you put your hand on it, it feels like there's not enough room for your fingers to curl around. And on the bottom, there's not much space for your pinky down here. So for the A7 IV, the grip is much bigger. Your hand fits comfortably around it. Initially, I thought it made the camera feel heavier, but after using it for a day or two, this feels a lot sturdier than the A7 III. So it feels like you have a better grip on this overall. The next difference that it's got is when the camera is off, you can actually turn the shutter on or close the shutter so that it will protect the sensor from dust. It's also very important that you don't actually touch the shutter because that is actually quite fragile as well. It's only there to protect it from dust, not from you actually touching the shutter. Now the A7 III doesn't have that, so if you do turn off the A7 III, the sensor is exposed. So besides the grip and the thickness of the body that's changed, the card slot has changed a little bit as well. So on the right is the A7 III. You used to be able to pop it open, and then there were two card slots there. Slot 1 was at the bottom for some reason, but that's how it was. Now on the A7 IV, the opening mechanism is a bit different. You got to slide down, and then you got to hold this down, and then slide the cover out to the left. And then you'll see there's also two card slots. There's SD cards for top and bottom. The top also takes CF Express Type A. The bottom takes SD card, but the top one can also take an SD card as well. So you can have two SD cards or one CF Express Type A and then one SD card at the bottom. And slot 1 is now on the top. Moving to the back of the camera, the biggest difference is on the new one is that it's got a flip out screen. So it will flip outwards like this. So if you want to take, I don't know, selfies or record yourself or vlog or something, you can actually see the screen here. It can also tilt as well. So you can also use it like this if you want to, shoot low down or you to shoot higher, you can also do that as well. I found that because it flips out, it means it's a little bit harder to get into like narrow spaces because if you need to like put it low but also fit it through, maybe a fence or something, you can't actually get it through anymore because this is, wider now. So keep that in mind. You can also just close the screen like this so that you can protect the screen when the camera is off. On the older A7 III, this screen is only a tilt flip or a tilt up screen. So it can tilt about that much and that's it. In terms of tilting it down when you're shooting high up, this is as far as it goes. And also the resolution of the new screen is quite a bit better. I found that the brightness is a bit better as well. So on the A7 III, I always overexposed my images because if I try to gauge the exposure with the back of the screen, it always looks a bit dimmer. So I always make it a bit brighter. And then afterwards, I noticed that, oh, my photos are all overexposed. Moving to the top of the camera, they've kind of changed the layouts of the buttons, well, mostly the record button. So the record button used to be here. So they've basically swapped C1 and the record button. On the A7 IV, the record button is where C1 used to be, and then C1 is where the record button on the A7 III used to be. But the biggest change is actually, or two of the biggest changes actually, is that this exposure compensation dial, or these ones here, this is now lockable. So there's a little lock that you can press. It's kind of like a ballpoint pen kind of clicky feel. And that's locked. And then when you see the white part, that means it's unlocked. And then you can spin it freely. It's unmarked now, so you can reassign it to whatever you want. I've just kept it as the as the exposure compensation dial because I'm used to it. And up here, there's like a stacked dial. So now there is dedicated stills and photos and S&Q mode. So that means when you switch the camera to photo or to video mode, this upper dial is all for video. If you switch to the photo mode, then upper dial is all for stills. So that's actually very useful. On the old one, the mode dial up here only had a movie mode. When you switch to movie mode, if you were shooting photos and you change the shutter speed or whatever, the movie mode would keep that kind of shutter speed. And then you have to think about it every time that, oh, I want the 180-degree shutter angle, then I got to fiddle with the with the shutter speed. So with the A7 IV, it remembers that, so it makes it a lot easier, and it's harder to, I guess, shoot in the wrong settings when you flip between photos and stills. Going to the left side of the camera, they've changed these panels on the side here, which is really good. So in the past, let me show you what it used to be like. On the A7 III, when you flip out these panels, they kind of just dangle there. And it's kind of annoying because they can get in the way of like the other ports. So if you open both panels, this will drop down and cover your USB-C port and so on. They also rattle around. So if you are filming video, this can hit stuff and then it'll make some noise. On the new one, they've changed it, which is great. If you have an A7S III, it's the same thing. If you flip open the top, so this is the mic port now, and this panel stays open and it doesn't hit anything, doesn't rattle around, which is excellent. And also down here, there's another headphone if you want to monitor your audio. And then of course, the charging ports down here, and there's a full-size HDMI port here as well. And this is the microphone, so if you're playing back any videos recorded, the sound will come up from here. So apart from these flaps being a lot better now, this little ring here is now, it's got enough friction to stay in position. So on the old Sony models, or the A7 III, this used to rattle around. If you shaked it, this thing would rattle around and it'll be very annoying. In fact, I actually removed them on my old camera here because they were so annoying. But on the A7 IV, because they have friction, they kind of stay into position. They don't rattle, so I think I'm okay with leaving them on the camera body this time. Now the A7 IV has a lot of major improvements over the A7 III. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can find a better video online, but the most prominent things that I saw when I picked it up was that the touchscreen now actually works as a touchscreen. So in the menus, you can actually navigate the menus via touch. Now, obviously, you have to turn it on, but it's great, at least as an option. On the A7 III, it has a touchscreen, but you can't actually touch it to do anything except, you know, choose pull focus or something. So that's the major thing. That's the first thing you notice. The next major thing you notice is that the EVF is a lot better than the previous one. I don't think there's a way to see it through the camera, but the EVF on the A7 IV is miles better than the older one on the A7 III. So I've only used these cameras for about 2 days, and the major things I've noticed that improved on the A7 IV over the 3 is the autofocus. The autofocus on the A7 IV is a lot quicker and it nails focus a lot better than the A7 III. And also the video has active stabilization. So here's a quick demo between the A7 IV's video with active stabilization versus the A7 III, which just uses the OSS steady shot stabilization, and you can see the difference between the two. All right, so that's it. That's my quick comparison between the A7 IV and the A7 III. Obviously not a full comparison or a full review by any means, but yeah, just my quick hands-on impressions between the two cameras. I hope this was useful, and thanks for watching.